Hey there, this is K4A, Knowledge for All Educational Videos and Tutorials. In today's video I will try to explain you how and when you can use GML visual drag and drop block, which is called break. This block was what we needed in previous video. In previous video we have explained how to use loop block, but that wasn't very successful because to use loop block you need to break out of it sooner or later, and this is what we're going to do today. And to do that you need this break block. This break block lets you get out of any loop block, so repeat, for, loop, while, and so on, and you use it when you need some kind of specific condition to define, and when that condition is met you want to break out of the loop. So we could even use the break loop with repeat and for loop, which we explained earlier, although these blocks have some kind of counter, some kind of exit on their own. But we will start first with the loop block because that one is cycling forever, as we have seen in previous video. First of all I will try to copy all this block from step event into create event, just to show you couple of different things which can be useful for you, and then I will disable the step. Okay, so in my game so far I have some kind of player on the screen which is white, some kind of enemies, let's say bombs, which are black, and I have this kind of spawner which I want, my game designer wants to endlessly spawn coins. We have tried to do that with loop in previous video, and although in step and also in create event, and that wasn't making anything, that was only making our game freeze, crash. So this time I will try to use break block, which is one of the loops block, so it's gray color, last of those, and it says break out of a loop. And previous one, loop, which we have used, even tells you in this description that you need a break. Loop is a generic loop that continues until a break action is hit, so let's try to do that. Okay, so some kind of error, right? Let me see. Yeah, I was probably trying to drag and drop into some field. Okay, so again I'm in create event. Create event runs only once. Step event runs as many times as we have defined here in our options, game options general. So in my game it's 30 frames per second. That means this step event will run 30 times per second. So if I create some kind of instance here with create instance block, this step will do that 30 times per second. So in first second it will create 30 instances, in second 30 more, that's 60, third second 30 more, that's 90, and so on. So just to be aware how this works for all of you who are new to GameMaker. So these are very important things to understand as soon as possible. Okay, so in my create event so far I have randomized to shuffle the numbers. Then I say, okay, create some kind of loop in which you will do this code. Get me some random number for X position, get me some random number for y position, create instance on that random x position, y position, and then this is very important, this is what we didn't have in previous video, break out of the cycle. So how many times this will run? Just read it as you would read a letter or a book or anything you write down. You read it from top to bottom. So first I will get a random number for x, then for y, then I will create the instance, and then I will break out of what? Out of this loop. So is there any code below this? Like, I don't know, any kind of code like this. Yeah, struggling with this, sorry. I want to go out of, yeah, this is what I want to show. Is there any kind of code here? If there was like this set tile or whatever type of code, then my GameMaker would run and try to read this, but in our case we don't have that. So when I do the break, I get out of this loop, and that's it. Because this create event runs only once, that means how many times we will create a coin, create instance. We will create instance 1, break out of this block loop, and that's it. Create is event is only read once, and then GameMaker goes to step event. So if this works as it's supposed to, it will create only one coin on the screen. And that doesn't make much sense, but I wanted to show you just how this works. Okay, so this is one random coin. I stop the game, I start it again after some time to play it again, and let me see if this is random. Yeah, the coin is now in a different place, in different position. Great. So that means that I can use this loop block as I did with for and as I did with repeat. Although it doesn't make much sense to use the loop in this kind of scenario like we did, so we will delete it. But and you don't even have to use loop. I can, if I want to have only one coin on my screen, I would never use loop or any kind of loop block. I would just say, okay, get me randomize random number for y and x, and create instance. And I don't need loop, I don't need break. This will give me the same result on the screen like I had a few moments ago. Why? Because I don't need loop, I need only one coin on the screen. Just to show you too, for some of you who are confused or still don't understand why and when we use all of those. Okay, so that doesn't make much sense. I will delete those, and okay, we can create one coin on the screen with the loop, and then break with break block. That's all cool, but let's now try that with step event. Okay, so I will now enable these blocks, same blocks like a few moments ago. I have a loop, and in that loop I'm looping what? I'm looping this code, get me random number for x position, get me random number for y position, create that instance, okay, for me on the screen. And because this step event, I'm in step event now, it runs 30 times per second. This should create 30 coins on my screen per every second. But the problem here is that this loop will not work. We have tried that before. Why? Because we don't have the break out of it, the exit. So let's add this break block to see what will happen now. And okay, just try to read this in common sense. Don't try to think about it as a code, but some kind of order of instructions like, okay, get me random number for x, for y, use that x and y random numbers to create instance, and then break out of it. And that will do what? That will create one coin on the screen, something like this. We don't know where, but it will create one coin. And that will happen when and how? That will happen in one frame. Every second has at least 30 frames. That's what we defined here in game options. So GameMaker and other game engines, they read it so fast and they can create stuff so fast that he did that in one frame, then go back from this break again on this loop. Why? Because we can see that this icon says cycle. You broke out of it, but we're in step event. Go for it again and read it again, and then add another coin somewhere else. And this will happen in 1 second. This will happen 30 times. So I will have 30 coins on my screen in 1 second, and then in next second 30 more, and so on. Why so? Because we are using the loop in step event. So this will get crazy very fast, but let's test it. I think this will work. But if we didn't edit this break block here, this wouldn't even work. Without break, it won't even work. Okay, so this is what my game designer wanted. I want to create crazy amount of coins or enemies, like every second, lots of them. Okay. Yeah, check it out. This looks, yeah, you can use this even to create some kind of, I don't know, some kind of environment or special effects. It doesn't have to be object as an enemy or pickup or... Okay, so this is going crazy. And okay, so again, my game designer now says, okay, this is now too much. Why is this working so fast? I don't want to have so many coins on the screen. So let's think about it, what we can change here now to make this game more fun but not too crazy. And for example, he can ask us to create a coin like for every second or something like that. So we can make that by changing this frame rate or adding more conditions here. Or maybe also he can ask us, for example, to have limited amount of coins on the screen. So yeah, let's try that scenario, that to show what else you can combine break with. Okay, so the game designer now says I want to have only 100 or something like that, 100 coins on the screen. So far this doesn't stop anywhere. We are creating coins endlessly. Although we used break, we used it only to break out of the loop once, but because we're in step event, it keeps on. So we need to add another condition. We need to ask another question. Is the number of coins on the screen 100? If it is, stop it, break. So we can now try to do that, to play a little bit more. To again, this is really useful for real world games or applications where you need to limit something on the screen. Okay, so first of all, I need to know how many coins on the screen I have. To find that, we can use one block which we have learned before, and that one is called get instance count, which is available here in instance group of blocks. So get instance count, I will put it above the loop, but I have to put it in my step event. Again, don't put it here in create. We only have randomize in create, but if I, for example, put this get instance count what number will I get for this? I want to know how many instances of the coin I have on the screen, and that's currently 0. And that's what I check only when this object is created. That's like a split of second, and that's a 0, and that's okay. You got that number, but that's not useful for us. I need to check that number every step, because that number will change. We create coins on the screen, the number of coins will change, so I need to check that number every frame. So get instance count of what? Of which object? I need to check how many coins I have. So object obj coin in my case. You can use this to check how many enemies are there and so on. And I need to put that in some kind of variable, which I will call coin counter. Yeah, coin counter. I already made some coin counts somewhere earlier. Okay, so coin counter is the variable, the box which will hold information how many coins I have on the screen. And that variable I need to draw. So I go to add event draw, and I need to draw that as value. So I go to drawing blocks, draw value, and this variable, how you named it, coin counter, draw that, and draw it where? On 0, 0. Okay, that's top left corner, and say coin. Okay, so now if this works, I will get the number of coins here in my top left corner, and you see how crazy that number goes up. Yeah, you can see 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. It's a couple of seconds, and I already have 200, 300 objects on the screen. So imagine if you make a mistake like this and make a game where you somewhere in background create some kind of instances objects like this, and how much pressure it puts on your game engine and game and processor of your computer, and why your games will crash and so on. So you have to be careful with loops in general, and that's why this break block is important, and combining it with others. Okay, so I have the number of coins, so let's try to use that number as a limit. So again, I have just used a very simple block here, get instance count, to check how many instances of object coin I have on my screen, how many coins I have on my screen. I put that number in some kind of variable, and now I'm going to use that variable as a checker, as a test, as a limit, as a question for GameMaker. Is my coin counter greater than 100? If it is, stop it, and so on. Or opposite, if it's less than 100, then create. Okay, so that's what we are going to do here and now. We have this number of coins, and we have creating coins in loop. So now we have to ask the GameMaker to add another more question, and because, as I said, this target is variable, so I need to check the variable. We have learned that before, how to do that with common blocks with this if variable. So drag and drop it here, and I will drop it in the loop. So again, in the loop. Why? Because I'm not going to check it before the loop. Maybe we can even make a code something like that, but I think this one is more sane for most of you. Okay, so what do I want to do? First I will tell you in English, and then we will code it. I want to check it here. Is my variable coin counter? I will copy paste it, select Ctrl C. So I'm asking GameMaker, is my variable, which one? He asks this one, coin counter. Is it less than 100. So I'm asking GameMaker here, is number of coins on my screen less than 100? Yes, it is. Okay, then create more coins. If it's greater than 100, stop, or equal. So I can use less or equal. Yeah, I will use just less. I think it will work. Okay, so if coin counter is less than 100, I want to do what? I want to get random number for x, get for y, and create instance, and then break out of it. Yeah, just let me think about it. Yeah, I think this will work like this, but save it and test it. And how long is this? Again, 20 minutes. Okay, but I hope we have learned a couple of different things and how you can combine break with more complex conditions. Yeah, exactly 100. So again, you see how now it stops. And why it stops? Because we added one more condition, one more question, which limits, in our case, is spawning of the coins. Yeah, and now even if I collect some, yeah, new one should be created, which is also great. And this proves that it runs, update runs all the time. Yeah. Okay, let me just go fast once more through this if you didn't understood, and that's it. Okay, so first of all, we have checked how many coins we have on the screen. We used get instance count for that and put that number in some variable which is called coin counter. And we did that in step event because we need to check that all through the game, not once like in create event, but all through the game. That's why it's in step event. After that, I made a loop, and this loop will work only if this is true. So this is, oops, this is yeah, I get crazy with these GameMaker drag and drop blocks. I don't like them much. So I wanted to say this if variable question, this if variable block is crucial. So this loop, this whole loop will work only if this is true, which means, okay, I can enter the loop, but if this isn't true, if my variable coin counter is not less than 100, I go where? I go down and break out of the loop. So it's simple as that. If this is true, if there are less than 100 coins, then read 1, 2, 3, and so on, and get out of it. But if it isn't, break out of it at once. If you have 100 or more coins on the screen, get out of it at once. So this is how you combine, as we have seen, break with other conditions. So you can use that also to make for loops more complex, repeat loops more complex, and so on. But the whole idea is that you first define what you need, what kind of conditions, what kind of checkers you need, then code them, and then break out of the cycle if something is true or not. And again, this is only one example and what makes sense to me in terms of coding. Instead of saying if variable coin counter is less, then stop. If it's less, then do this. You can say if it's greater, break, and then put this out of this if. So what I want to say, you can use some two different approaches. You can say if something is greater than 100 or less than 100 as a condition. So, and depending on what you use, your code will be different. But let me not confuse you anymore. This was long enough. I think you understood that you need break with loop. Always to get out of it, the loop itself will run endlessly like this circle here. So you always, when you use loop, use break right away, then code in it. But also this is very important, this addition of another block into a loop, into if, while, for, repeat, and so on. So we haven't used that much before because we haven't used more complex examples or games, but this will hit you sooner or later. So, and again, I really don't like how GameMaker represents these blocks. They are, from my opinion, they are much more they're cooler, they're better in Scratch, because, and I will make a new video about that. Here you can get confused very fast and you're not sure if this block is in it, like is this get random number in it, in if variable test, or is it like if I put it here, out of it, it goes. You can easily make mistakes. That's what I wanted to say. So yeah, that was it for this game, and very practical example where you create 100 instances of the screen, exactly 100. You limit the creation of some objects on the screen, and when I pick up coins, new will be created again, only to the limit of 100 or so, because we have defined it that way. See you in next video. Probably I will start some kind of Unity tutorial soon or something like that. But again, these loops blocks, they are very important. They are in every game engine, and they can be more or less complex or confusing you more or less, but just experiment with them. We will have new videos, new examples, and you can ask questions in comments, and that's it. They are just called differently in different game engines. So this step event, for example, it's also some kind of loop of its own. Yeah, that's also very important, which I forgot to tell you. This step event works exactly like this loop block, which we have explained in few previous videos. It goes on and never stops. So you have to be careful, because that puts pressure on the game engine and computer, and that's why you need to master those, or at least be aware how dangerous these blocks are. See you in next video, and again, thanks for watching, and feel free to ask in comments what you need with GameMaker or in general. Bye for now.